Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. Despite the glitz and glamour of the music industry, one of its dark characteristics is that the music business often attracts the unwanted attention of thugs and gangsters that prey on the artists. And while musicians are often easy pickings for these crooks, quite a few of them who are products of the same streets are just too tough to mess with. The likes of Josie Wales, Dillinger, and the great Robbie Shakespeare are prime examples of Hardmen who also did music. Robbie Shakespeare in particular was a fearless hothead with street credibility that won him respect in Kingston's toughest streets. He was as strong as an ox and had even served jail time in Jamaica on gun charges. It was these skill sets that he would employ just in time to literally save the life of British reggae artist Maxi Priest from a vicious 7-man gang of gangsters in a popular nightclub in Birmingham, England. As a big fan of Sly and Robbie, I had always known about how strong and brave Robbie actually was. But it wasn't until legendary reggae promoter and manager Copeland Forbes revealed this incredible event that I got to know the extent of his abilities and why the man had wielded so much street cred on Kingston's toughest streets. Let's take a look at how master bass player and badass Robbie Shakespeare saved Maxi Priest from a notorious gangster during the 1988 Taxi Connection World Tour. By 1988, Sly Dunbar and Robbie Shakespeare had long established themselves as the world's greatest rhythm section, an unstoppable duo powered by musical chemistry and an awesome friendship despite them being polar opposite personalities. And while Sly was a quiet and calm gentleman, Robbie was an outspoken, no-nonsense firecracker. Aside from playing on and producing some of the greatest reggae and non-reggae artists on the planet, their Taxi label was doing incredible things, releasing music that featured superstar guest artists and playing numerous sold-out concerts with them. And one of their most popular tours were the Taxi Connection tours that took place in 1986 and 1988. The 1986 edition had featured Ainika Mose, Yellowman, and Half Pint. But for the 1988 edition, Sly and Robbie would recruit British reggae artists Maxi Priest, Freddie McGregor, and saxophone genius Dean Fraser. That year's tour would feature awesome performances that took off in the US, through Japan, and across mainland Europe, with the last shows to take place in Great Britain in December 1988. But just before the crew was set to depart from the US, Maxi Priest approached the tour manager Copeland Forbes to confide in him about something that was really bothering him. He told Forbes that he was deeply worried about performing in the UK because he had fears of getting tracked down and dealt with by a notorious and vicious gangster in Britain known as Keithy Axe, whose last name was given in tribute to his favorite weapon of choice. According to Maxi Priest, he'd gotten a tip-off that Keithy Axe had found out that he was part of that tour, which had been heavily advertised in the UK. Copeland Forbes tried to find out why the gangster was after him, but Maxi Priest just wouldn't say why. He just told Forbes that he was dropping out of the UK leg of that tour, but Copeland Forbes was having none of it, and he made it clear to Maxi Priest that he and Freddie McGregor were the only vocalists on that tour, and that dropping out would create problems for the show promoters, and those problems would come back to bite them all. He assured Maxi that he would, however, put extra steps in place to guarantee security the moment they got into the UK. So that tour breezed through sensational sold-out shows over the next 3 weeks, with the last taking place in France. It was now time to move on to the UK, and the Taxi crew took a ferry from Calais, France to Dover in Britain. But upon arrival in Dover, Copeland Forbes noticed that Maxi Priest was gathering his luggage and getting off the tour bus. And when he asked Maxi what was going on, the singer told him straight up that he was too scared to continue as he didn't think they had what it took to protect him from Keithy Axe. Robbie saw Maxi leaving and asked Forbes what was wrong. And when Forbes told him the whole story, he went over to talk to Maxi and reassured him that he wouldn't let anything happen to him and convinced him to get back on the bus. So the crew employed the services of a well-known tough guy to act as Maxi Priest's bodyguard and got on with the rest of the tour. And they went on to put in a sizzling slew of performances across the UK without any drama. However, their next stop was Birmingham, which happened to be the city that Keithy Axe was from and a place that he commanded a large violent gang. The crew hired extra security to guard Maxi Priest. But when Keithy Axe and his gang didn't show up, they would cut ties with the extra security after the first few days. Bad move. The last show in Birmingham was to take place at a popular nightclub called the Hummingbird, and Maxi Priest kicked off the show with a 45-minute performance that rocked the house big time. Freddie McGregor was next and whipped the crowd into a frenzy almost immediately he got on stage. It seemed like the UK tour would end on a peaceful high after all, when Keithy Axe and 6 of his best enforcers simply rolled over the security guarding the club's back entrance and began to make their way to Maxi Priest's dressing room. His bodyguard, who was guarding the door, tried to make a brave stand against the thugs, but got overwhelmed in a matter of seconds. Copeland Forbes, who saw what was happening, ran to the stage where Sly and Robbie were jamming with Freddie McGregor. He screamed to Robbie that Keithy Axe and his crew had found Maxi and were just about to break into his dressing room. Robbie stopped playing immediately and would hand his bass guitar to the stage technician who also played bass and told him to go on with the show before getting off the stage and storming towards the dressing room. Robbie came across Keithy Axe and his crew, giving Maxi Priest's bodyguard a serious beating and rushed into the fray with his fists, aiming at Keithy Axe with some really deadly blows. Copeland Forbes, who was watching the whole brawl, left the scene and ran over to the Hummingbird Club owner, Lloyd Blake, to let him know what was going on. And by the time Forbes and Lloyd Blake got to where the brawl was supposed to be happening, he saw Robbie and Keithy Axe, both looking like they'd been hit by a truck, walking towards Blake's office. It appeared that Robbie had used a mix of brute force and brains to convince the gangsters to talk first before breaking into Maxi Priest's dressing room and doing what they came for. So Keithy Axe, Robbie Shakespeare, Copeland Forbes and Lloyd Blake sat down in a meeting to get to the bottom of why Keithy had an axe to grind with Maxi Priest. It so happened that Maxi's former manager, Erskine Thompson, had allegedly accepted a deposit from Keithy to perform at a show some months before. But unfortunately, Erskine Thompson and Maxi parted ways soon after, and the singer failed to honor that commitment. Maxi was a no-show and the event never took place, leaving Keithy Axe fuming and eager to make an example of Maxi Priest. But before he could lay his hands on Maxi, Keithy Axe was arrested for an earlier crime and sent to prison. And to make matters worse, word had filtered to Keithy while behind bars that Maxi Priest, who incidentally is among the most handsome reggae artists of his time, had begun an affair with his girlfriend, effectively adding grievous insult to injury, and he vowed to personally take care of Maxi once he was out of jail. But soon after getting released, he heard that Maxi Priest had just left England to go on tour with Sly and Robbie. It would take plenty of convincing, but after a lengthy meeting that night, Keithy Axe agreed to call up the Vendetta if he got a refund from Maxi Priest of his deposits for the no-show, though we don't know how Maxi managed to make amends for seducing his girlfriend. So the Taxi Connection World Tour of 1988 ended without Maxi Priest losing any limbs. He'd escaped a brutal mauling, or even worse, all thanks to the quick thinking and not to mention the brute strength of the great Robbie Shakespeare. The Taxi crew would a few days later depart for Jamaica to perform at that year's edition of the Sting Festival, where Maxi Priest would tear it up in his first performance on Jamaican soil. But mind you, before they got back to Jamaica, the entire Taxi Connection crew would narrowly escape being among the victims of one of the worst terrorist attacks in history, all thanks to a divinely inspired decision by Freddie McGregor. And we covered this tale in a previous video and left a link at the end of this video for those interested in that amazing story. So there you have it. Thank you for watching the video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, God bless.